Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Your Last Best Hope for Conversation, the Babylon 5 podcast. Joining me in the CNC is Karen.
Hello.
Lou.
How do, everyone?
And I am Jesse, and we are discussing A Distant Star, the season 2, episode 4 episode, Captain Sheridan's old commanding officer, Captain Jack Maynard, arrives at the station aboard the Explorer-class ship EAS Cortez, and disaster ensures in hyperspace. This was written by, where did
DC Fontana.
Yes, which everyone will recognize that name, and directed Jim Johnston. And Jim Johnston has done a lot of TV directing.
Right.
So I'm going to start out because I usually hit my other two first. This is a meh episode. They certainly showed us something instead of telling us something, but I don't know if there was a lot of meat on the bone. Lou, how about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of fat here just to get us to be aware that these shadow enemies are using hyperspace as well.
Karen?
I think I might have liked it a little more than you guys, and I guess we'll get into why. But I do agree there was a lot of stuff going into what could have been like condensed into a shorter story.
Okay. So Captain Jack Maynard shows up. I guess this is a big deal. According to Sheridan, you won't get to see an Explorer-class ship that often. It sounds like they are like the Enterprise. They're out seeking new worlds and strange life and all that, and they're there to supply, which brings up all these other questions. Does Babylon 5 just have stuff sitting there? Like, is that one of the things they do since they're part of the Earth government? They are a supply chain. Do you pay for that? Can any ship replenish and then that planet bills Babylon 5 so that they have the budget? I don't know. But turns out that this guy was Sheridan's first commanding officer, a dear friend, and they have a reunion. We also get that Sheridan, this makes him itchy. He realizes that he's now chained to a desk. His dream was to be a starship commander out in the skies. And while he's in space, he's basically a mayor, a diplomat. He's riding a desk. Karen, thoughts on this?
Okay, so I actually dig Russ Tamblyn. I hate Twin Peaks. No offense to our good friend Charles. He knows my stance on that.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple things I like about it, but Russ Tamblyn played a pretty significant character on that show. So most people will know him from there. He was the leader of the Jets in West Side Story.
The original.
And the original, yes. And
That's pretty significant, isn't it?
Yeah. And he is also, he's been in a lot of things. He was the youngest brother in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. And he is most notably known as the father of Amber Tamblyn. So I like him as an actor. I don't think this was his best performance ever, but I feel like he and Bruce Boxleitner played well against each other. I also like that we are learning more about the jump gate stuff. Apparently, one of the jobs of these starships is to help find places for new jump gates out further and to also repair them. So, that's cool. And I dug that. I'm more torn about Sheridan's disquiet. I feel like, why did he take the job then? He could have turned it down, right? So I understand what he said, that if the president calls you up, you go. But I don't know if he feels like this wasn't his calling, he should have turned it down. But I do like that this settled him into okay, I get it. This is my gig. I think I can take pleasure in it. We're all part of space. So I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I also like that it was Delenn that gave him that impetus to be all he could be.
He was also, because his daughter was in Joan of Arcadia, which is a show that I truly enjoyed.
Me too.
He played dog walking God.
Yes.
And for those of you who aren't aware of the show, the Amber character talked to God, and God appeared in different forms. There was the Mrs. Lanningham God, which
Yep.
is, and so I thought that was nice that he was able to play a role with his daughter.
Yeah.
Lou, how about you?
I have to say off the top, I think part of my disappointment with this episode is because DC Fontana wrote it. I was expecting more because of her track record with other episodes that she's written for other series. So this one really felt a lot like she was writing a story that had to fit around, you've got to make this bullet point, you got to make that bullet point, you got to make this bullet point. So it felt really forced at times. So like Karen mentioned, like Russ Tamblyn telling Sheridan about that, like, don't you really think your destiny's out in the stars and all that? And why did they assign you to this command? Because you have this history with the Minbari and all that. Like, we've already established that point before, so I don't really know why they had to bring that point up again. So it just felt really straitjacketed in a lot of aspects. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, we could say, good character beats, like the diet stuff and that stuff that normally would be funny or good, but it just didn't hang together. And then the whole stuff with the Stargate, or the Jumpgate, sorry, Stargate's another show. Jumpgate stuff it's a little confusing, and it's a little hard to believe that somebody could just visually see a spaceship and be able to plot their course out of an unplottable piece of space. Like, I just don't buy that. So yeah, it just didn't hang together for me. It didn't really accomplish much. And maybe you'll say that I'm gonna go down this series road and say, oh, aha, that's why they did that. But I don't really see a lot of that beyond establishing the fact that these shadow people are using the jump gates as well. And Russ Tamblyn, I mean, I have nothing against the guy, but he just doesn't look like a starship captain to me. Like, and if you look at his IMDb history, he plays a lot of doctors, and that's what he looks like to me. Like, he should have been a doctor, not a captain. Most notably, he played a doctor on the most famous episode of The Haunting of Hill House, the bent neck lady. So his performance was okay, but he doesn't have that command presence that Bruce Boxleitner has. So to me, it felt more like two brothers talking to each other rather than two command figures. So there's just a lot of subjective aesthetics things about the episode that just didn't gel to me. So I just didn't really enjoy it on much of any level, except for the one conversation that we'll get into later on that Delenn had, which was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm similar to you guys, and I have seen the whole series, and cannot right offhand, and I'm sure that our wonderful listeners will send an email telling me, hey, no, Jesse, you aren't remembering this. Yeah, I mean, I think we got to see the shadows established, perhaps, that they, much like Tony Soprano in his boat, doesn't care about anyone in his wake, so they end up doing this. We do get a payoff a little bit. Does something live in hyperspace? That was a background on a USA Universe Today magazine earlier cover. And so they throw up this, hang it back. I don't find this a real crisis of faith with Sheridan.
Yeah.
I think it's poor timing. He yells at Garibaldi right after he convinces him that I need you and come back. And then he's yelling at him. I would have liked to seen him close that loop and apologize to him. I assume that happens off screen. The whole idea of this feels too early in Sheridan's reign or his command to be having second guessing. And maybe the idea was, okay, well, his old friend's there. He's seeing what he could have had if he had stayed the course. But I really like Bruce Boxleitner, but I don't like the way he played this. I would have liked him to play it a little bit more wistful and maybe melancholy, like, yeah, when the president calls, you go, and I know this is a big challenge and this is good for my career, but damn it, I want to fly on and off, right? Kirk had that problem where you need to be in the center seat. You need to be the captain of a starship, not an admiral somewhere. So I don't know if that worked.
Yeah, I think that The biggest problem for me with this episode is it seemed to be covering ground that we'd already covered in previous episodes as far as Sheridan goes.
Yeah. And the other thing
Retreads,
is poor Robert Rustler. I have nothing against him as a person, but I just don't care about Warren Kiefer. He had just been here, and now then he's gone, and we're supposed to be all upset that we've lost a member. This would almost be, and this is going to come across cruel, and I apologize in advance. It's like we're dedicating a whole episode to a red shirt on the original Enterprise Star Trek.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will get to like him more as he continues, but for right now, he's someone who's barely been on screen. Don't have a connection. I think it's very hand wavy on how he was able to get through the hyperspace to find his way home. And I don't find that as a real crisis. The episode, like, okay, they're lost, they don't have their beacon, and they decide, they're going to do this bucket brigade, basically the same way you do. And we've seen this in hundreds of TV shows or even movies when they're searching for someone lost. People walk almost hand in hand next to each other, and you always go, that's dumb. Why are they not? Well, the reason why is that way you absolutely know you're covering every foot or coverage on that wilderness. Yeah, so I agree with you guys. It's not a bad episode. I watched it and I enjoyed it, but when it came to last night, I was like, I should watch this again before we record. And I go, I'm okay. I'll watch a
same
Hallmark.
thing.
I'll watch a Hallmark movie instead. It's the Christmas. Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to talk about, I don't know if we're going to get more into the hyperspace thing, but
please do.
Okay. I'm wondering, well, it's not in the direction you are thinking, but
okay.
I'm wondering if this advances our knowledge of the shadow people more than we're thinking. I mean, are they mad because we're using the jump gates and that's their territory? I mean, is this part of their agenda? It looks like to me that they didn't have any huge vendetta with the ships that were in the hyperspace, that they didn't even acknowledge those ships were there, essentially. But they are involving themselves in our politics and our hierarchies. They're digging into making some unrest between races. So it makes me wonder, is this part of the agenda? Because this ship that got stuck in hyperspace was instrumental in placing jump gates out further into space. They also repaired jump gates, like I said before. So did they pull this ship into hyperspace on purpose to stop it from placing jump gates? I mean, all these things are going through my mind, and that might have been why I enjoyed it a little bit more than you guys, because I'm reading things into, I'm trying to grasp, are they going someplace with this? Is this a clue for us? So yeah, I know it doesn't make sense and it's hand wavy and they're not really, and I know they're not doing the technobabble thing. They don't want to get into that. But I'd like to know a little more about it. They can do a little bit of that. Tell me how it works, because I don't understand how it works right now. Is it just a case of the jump gates are like echolocations that your ship sees? I mean, what is the deal with them? So I'm leaning more towards how Lou thinks right now, and I want to know more. Why aren't they explaining more? And are the shadow people angry? Do they have an agenda that's based on this hyperspace area? So yeah, it made me think about all that stuff. Go ahead.
I totally like your train of thought, Karen. And if that comes to fruition down the road, that would be great to see. My problems with the hyperspace section of the episode were twofold. First, if this ship is building jump gates in that, how could one system blow out and they're totally screwed? Like, where's no backups? I don't buy any of that. And then the other thing is these shadow warriors, like we've seen them being very aggressive on other episodes. Why didn't they destroy the fighter? Right. The X-Wing, or I assume the Cortez was maybe too big for it. But So yeah, there's just some inconsistencies, and a lot of it, as you've pointed out, has to do. We don't understand the nature of jump gates in hyperspace in the Babylon 5 universe. I don't know like how they make one jump gate at one end and get to another jump gate at another end. Like if they're exploring new space, how do they build these jump gates? Like I to my thinking, they have to have a jump gate at both ends to do it. But I believe somebody said in one of the emails that we got that bigger ships can jump without jump gates. I might be wrong in that. Jesse maybe can correct me on that. But yeah, so there's a lot of,
yeah.
It's a lot of fuzzy wuzzy stuff there that it makes it hard to understand.
So in my mind, how we did this was I exit out the jump gate that's the furthest it can be, and then I travel with the Cortez, which by the way, great name for an explorer, right? And then you go, and then after 6 months, a year of travel, you go, oh, we've mapped this. This would be a good place to build a jump gate. And so they make a marker on that. And then I guess they have the equipment to build a jump gate there. Maybe they have enough crew and they can build just, or at least the start, and then they build it like mapping, because they talked about that. That's how I picture it. I do feel like in a lot of ways, in a timey-wimey, DC Fontana and JMS said, hey, Lou wants to know more about the jump gates. Let's do an episode about hyperspace and jump gates to give him answers, even though this was 25 years before you asked the question.
Right. So that's them riding around that conceit.
Yeah. And so the Cortez would have to be able to jump without a jump gate, because if they jump and there's no jump gate at the other end, then they're screwed. So they have to be able to jump back on their own.
Well, I think what I understand is they go to the jump gate, they get exit, and then they travel in real space, not hyperspace, which takes a longer time. Then they get to a point, they build another jump gate, and then from there they can go back to an earlier. You can do it's like they're paving the road as they go, and then they build an exit ramp.
But they must be able to jump back without a jump gate. Otherwise, they could get stranded very easily.
I do not know that. I know in the future we will see ships that can do their own jump gates, but I do not know. I guess I could Google it really quick, but so.
Yeah.
But I think the sad thing is that we're debating more about whether the ship could jump gate more than we do any of the storyline.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, but yay, Warren did not die. We now he has a recording of a shadow vessel, which hang a lantern on could be important down the road. Because it's actually proof of what something else Jakar was worried about and seeing. All right, so for some reason, Marcus, our doctor, gets on everyone's rear end about their diets. He's grumpy. I don't know if he's not enjoying it, but he gets so. Claudia is not eating enough food, so she's worried she's going to gain weight. Sheridan, which I think is a little bit, is when he talked about how much fruits and vegetables he was eating when he got in there fresh, and now then they're talking about rabbit food. I think that was a little bit of no. If anything, he would have been really binging on fresh fruits and vegetables, so I don't think you would have had to make them do that. And I absolutely do believe in Garibaldi would be a meat and potatoes guy.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
The big problem is they all look so skinny.
Yes.
Especially Garibaldi. Like when he stands up and he's tightening or putting on his jacket, and you can see he's like as flat as a board, right? And the doctor says you got to go on a diet. I go, really?
That did make for a funny scene when they were all
that's
eating,
like gag.
They changed their tables, and then when the doctor went by, they changed it back. That was a funny scene. Yeah. Garibaldi wants to celebrate his birthday with I had never heard of this dish.
Magna Cauda. Yeah, it's real.
Yes, I saw in the reference guide lurkers that it is Banga Cauda.
Cauda.
Half cup of olive oil, 1/4 butter, 1 stick, 5 cloves of garlic, chopped, 6 anchovy fillets, mashed, and black pepper. You heat all in butter together in the top of a double boiler. In a small skillet, cook the garlic and a bit of this oil until soft. Add the anchovies, cook until the fish turns into paste, about 5 minutes. Mix the paste with the hot oil and butter. Transfer to a chafing disc or fondue pot to keep warm on the table. It congels as it's cool. This did not sound good to me at all.
Well,
Any thoughts
okay,
on Garibaldi's special dinner?
you have to look at it as a way to cook the stuff that you're eating.
Mhm.
That's not the dish, technically. The dish is the meat and the vegetables and stuff that you put in it and cook in it,
Oh, okay.
like fondue.
Okay.
And this is the seasoning or sauce
Okay.
or whatever.
Well, I saw they were dipping bread
Yeah.
in it, and so I guess okay.
Yeah, but you can use it like, I don't know if you've ever had like it's a Korean barbecue type thing where they put a sauce in a bowl and it's got all spices and stuff
Okay.
in it. You don't drink that as soup. You just cook the meat in it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's what this is
I
essentially.
thought they were eating tofu or something.
Okay.
Well, it could have been tofu
So you dip your vegetables or your bread in it.
or
Yeah.
meat even.
Okay. Okay.
So you
All right.
cook whatever it is in that. You're not eating a stick of butter and a bunch of
So
stuff.
Okay.
again, one meal is not going to ruin your diet.
Correct.
So
Right.
I don't know. See what the big hassle was about this either.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that when Penn Jillette started, he lost all that weight several years ago, that his diet guru said rare and appropriate, that cheating on your diet should be rare, but it should be appropriate.
Yeah.
And so I always thought that makes sense. I'm not, as someone who's fought for my weight my whole life, I don't, it is common and probably
And
inappropriate.
inappropriate.
Yes,
Yep.
but I like
Same
that.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other storyline is some of the Bombari are not happy with Delenn. They
Mhm.
don't understand. We find a little bit more about their different castes, and some of them are not happy with her. She's saying, I feel even more one of us, but she's half human, she's half Bombari. What's going on? So, Lou, any thoughts on our storyline with Delenn?
I don't understand why she's reluctant to be as accommodating as possible to help allay any concerns about her transformation. Like, what is she hiding? Is there there must be an ulterior motive here?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why is she so evasive about this? As if she would just come out and say she doesn't really know why she turned out to be what she did, that would even be better than pretending that she does know why she's undergone this exact transformation. And again, they've said that this transformation has happened, I think, 2 times before in their history. So what was the conditions of those transformations, and how does that relate to what Delenn has undergone? So again, because Babylon 5, and I know the viewers are going to nail me for saying this again, doesn't explain things properly or with enough context, it's difficult to know why she's being evasive about this. So my guess is that she doesn't know why she's in the shape that she is in. So, and she doesn't want that to be revealed because that would make her look weak in some aspect.
Yeah.
But again, that's us inferring.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I feel like they cheated by saying, well, the Minbari they're always full of crap.
Yeah.
There was that throwaway line to explain it. I'm doing air quotes again. And it's not a good explanation. And it was so short, this sequence, or these 2 sequences. We already know that the Grey Council isn't happy. They told her not to do it. So that's rehashing something. So now I guess there's more repercussions. How do they know she's gone through this? Why are they coming to her and all of a sudden what big things does she have to do with the Minbari that they feel like this is a threat? Are we going to learn? I'm hoping we're going to learn that. How entrenched is she? How does this stop her from being an envoy to the Minbari? And I like her as a character very much. I just don't understand this whole thing and why she feels more like a Minbari. Why? She's less a Minbari, right? I mean, so yeah, that was the part of the episode that really got me. It made me scratch my head. Why do they keep coming back to this instead of just maybe explaining more about what because I feel like we didn't learn anything from her storyline in this.
So I'm going to agree with you guys both that yes, we've established that, but I already knew this because I've seen the show, that there's three casts. There's the worker caste, the religious caste, the military caste. And so I got the feeling that while the Great Council, which is equal 333, they're unhappy with her, but this felt like this was maybe the religious caste, her caste, coming to her going, hey, what's going on? So I wonder if there's a second hierarchy, like there's in American terms, right? There's the Speaker of the House, but then there's also the head of the party, where the minority leader or the majority leader or something. So maybe there's the three members of the gay council, but gray council, not gay council, gray council. And then there's the leaders of the religious and the military and the worker caste. Yeah, she plays her normal arrogant self. I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. Go away. I think it works because Mira Furlan is just so likable. And she has played both Delenn as a very kind, but also someone you don't want to mess with. So I think she did okay with that. It feels to me just a little bit like, oh, we don't have enough story, so let's throw in something for Delenn.
Let's shove this in. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
And they also wanted her to have that conversation with Sheridan at the end. So why not put her in a little bit more of the episode? I mean, that's how it felt to me.
So let's talk about that. I see, and I remember watching this to begin with, there seems to be some nice chemistry between Delenn and Sheridan. And so I like their little talks. It's a little different than her talks with Sinclair. So talk to me a little bit about, and let's start with you, Lou.
Yeah, this was my favorite part of the episode. Even though we've already discussed the Sheridan's ambivalence about being there had already been covered before. But at least in this one, it was more about she was talking to him about the loss of the two pilots. At that time, we thought it was two.
Yeah.
And she confirms with him that he's where he needs to be because that's how the universe works. We end up where we're supposed to be. And it was funny that she talked about star stuff.
Yes.
She says, we are star stuff. We are the universe made manifest, trying to figure itself out, which was a theme that we all probably remember from Midnight Mass, and it was covered in much greater detail there. And that was more about dying and rebirth and so forth. So I think I was more attuned to that particular scene because of our Midnight Mass viewing experience and discussion. So I thought it was the best scene in the episode. And the star stuff is a pretty common theme that's addressed in a lot of other TV shows and books and stories and whatnot. But I did like it. And I thought it felt like the one, I don't want to say true, but maybe real moment in the episode. Everything else just felt like it was there to support a checklist of, we got to get these story points across.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do love that. And we have learned sometimes the universe requires a change of perspective, which is, I think, a very good line. How about you, Karen?
Same. That was my very favorite part of the episode. That not only from Midnight Mass, but like Carl Sagan, that was a big thing for him, that we're all connected to every living thing and non-living thing because of the molecules, and the atoms are the same everywhere. It's just how they're put together. And I thought that was very poetic. And also it did solidify the fact that, well, if I'm supposed to be here, I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Which I liked. And I do like that. I feel like Delenn had an agenda before, and now maybe she doesn't have that much of an agenda with Sheridan. I feel like she had some secret thing that she was trying to do with the previous captain. I'm sorry. Okay.
Sinclair, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to add too, like the perspective thing. I would highly recommend reading Stephen King's Elevation, because that's all about changing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it really well done. And I believe that's been covered elsewhere on our channels.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have
Uh
been. Yep.
yeah. So any feelings on Sheridan and Delenn's early chemistry? Either one of you.
It's good. I mean, they're both good actors. So
Mhm.
with a lot of roles already under their belt,
Yeah.
I feel like you can see that in their performances, that they're very practiced in their craft, and they bring that chemistry, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you, Karen. Both of them are really good actors. The difference right now is because of Delenn's transformation. We still don't know the lay of the land as to how that affecting her and how it's going to drive her. So there's some ambiguousness there that is undercutting those scenes because we just don't know because in Babylon 5 everybody is not as they seem. So she's really at that point in the story right now. We have no clue or very little clue as to what her purpose is going forward right now. So
Okay.
but from a craft perspective, yeah, I think they work well together.
Good. Very nice. Anything else we need to discuss?
Yeah, why is Kefler in the opening credits? Is he that big of a deal that he has to be in the opening credits?
Good question.
Okay.
I have someone in their feedback said that this was the network's choice. They wanted someone else, a new character thrown in there, is what I've heard. I don't remember.
Okay.
So
Because
yeah.
usually there's that button on HBO where you can skip the intro.
Yeah.
But I watched the intro a couple times in the first season and then was doing something that I couldn't get to the remote in my watching of this episode. And I'm like, who is that dude? What is that dude doing there? And then all of a sudden he's a big part of this episode. So I mean, why are they throwing this guy a bone? Who is this dude? So I just wasn't sure at all what was going on.
Yeah, and it is always good because the credits change every season, and so it is good every once in a while they don't change. I mean, it's the same every season. They don't change it multiple times during the season, but it's always good to check what have they changed, what is the verbiage he's using, who is the one narrating it. I know that we are getting the finished, but under Lurker's Guide, he talked about that they tweaked the opening sequence multiple times before they got it right on season 2.
Okay.
So I assume we're actually getting the finished on HBO. So good.
It just jumped out at me as like,
absolutely.
What is this dude doing
yes.
here?
And it seems like why is he's not even the squadron leader at the beginning, right? So why would he be at dinner with all them? It's a random, hey, let's go.
Are they just shoving this dude in? Did he sleep with someone?
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah. And
what's the deal?
Well, and you wonder maybe was he friends with someone before, like had they been stationed together, they had spent some time together, and even though he isn't in the same rank as the rest of them, he still they could have had a connection to him. I don't know. So yeah, I got nothing.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right. Ratings. I'm gonna start. I'll give it 7 out of 10 olive oil dips. Yeah. Lou?
I'll give it 7 very nice Russian borders.
Yes.
Okay.
That is a great line.
I feel like she has very nice Russian borders.
I agree too.
I'm going to give it also 7. I guess we all liked it about the same amount. 7 pairs of cowboy boots. Because he was wearing cowboy boots in this episode.
Yeah, which was funny. By the way, Claudia Christian has a semi-regular role on 911. She plays one of the leads. She's police, like captain or something. And I tweeted this past Monday, she was on the show, and I tweeted it was good to see her. And whoever runs Claudia Christian's Twitter said thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was glad to hear. Yeah, so that was nice to see. Did we get any feedback we want to share?
We got a feedback from Cheryl. So thank you, Cheryl. She says, I just listened to your latest episode. I'm glad you enjoyed Jill Barup's little song. That was We discussed that. It was very cool.
Yes, we did. Yes.
I have a few thoughts after listening to the episode that I'd like to share. In regards to your comments about season 2 overall, there are a couple of almost standalone episodes with iffy guest stars that almost seem like season 1 style episodes to come, but they do steadily diminish as season 2 progresses. So that's good news. In regards to Geometry of Shadows, I agree this isn't the best as a standalone episode. I think this is an episode that actually fits better in a binge watching of the season over a few days than in a week by week viewing. This episode does have special place in my heart because Veer facing down the Technomage's monster is one of the scenes that made me realize there was more to the character than just comic relief. If you compare his steadfast refusal to shift in the face of his fear to the way Londo delivered his apology in similar circumstances, you get a faint glimpse of the courage underneath his bumbling exterior. It is sad that the WB has never given the special effects a little TLC. I've seen several samples of several methods of upscaling done by fans, and one that, if I recall correctly, was tweeted out by JMS that could create substantial improvements to the appearance of the effects on modern televisions. The DVD versions are unfortunately the worst version of the effects out there. That said, I understand the HBO Max version has some improved upscaling, so if any first-time viewers find the effects are really hindering their enjoyment, they might want to consider watching those instead of the DVD versions. I'm not sure if it solved the issues that occur anytime the CGI is mixed with filmed characters, but the samples I've seen of the upscaling on exterior shots seem to be a significant improvement. Cheryl. We have mentioned that the ships and the outside shots have looked really good. So, yeah, it's nice to point that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I know that it is a common frustration with JMS on Twitter when people are like, well, what? And he's like, look, Warner Brothers is not going to spend money on this show. They don't think they need to. They don't care. And so who knows? Maybe if a miracle happens, it's not dead yet, but if they do the reboot or the reimagining and it becomes ridiculously popular, then maybe they may go back and spend money. But he has been very vocal in the past about Warner Brothers has different divisions, and each division is individual. And so they don't care about helping the others. So
yeah, plus the home media market is so different now. It's all streaming, and people are not going. People don't buy DVDs and Blu-rays of that anymore. So there's no incentive for them to upgrade the visuals because it's all on streaming, which people are just paying a subscription fee for. So they would be very hard for them to recoup the costs.
Yeah, it's just the way the nature.
Yep.
Nathan sent us one that I had forgotten to email you guys, so I'll take it really quick. Since as always, a great email. He does salute the Jack the Traitor. His salute is a reference to The Prisoner from 1967.
Mm-hmm.
He sent us a little bit about, you can find it out there, where they tried to do Delenn's voice as a man and it did really, really not work. So he says, another thing is, now you understand why Delenn's makeup changed so drastically between The Gathering and the first episode, when Baljakar and Londo's almost didn't. She looked almost exactly like the Mabari assassin we saw, and was very prominently masculine. So during the pilot, the plan was originally, and then they changed. And then the last line, he gave me a lot of nice thoughts about the Technomage and how he didn't like it. But he ends his email with, finally, this is Ivanova I love. Claudia Christian is great at being a straight man in a ridiculous situation. She makes all the scenes, and she is a delight to watch. And I echo that. I think I am very, very happy to see. I thought that was some fun stuff. Anything posted on our YouTube channel?
Yeah, so that's mostly, it's from our last episode, the Geometry of Shadows. A lot of comments about the Technomages. Simon says that they just didn't use advanced tech. They also did a lot of traditional magic tricks of misdirection and so forth. And he says, for example, in the scene with Ver, I never got the impression that Alric actually teleported. He was always on a lower level. the first appearance was a hologram, just like the giant demon.
Mm.
So, and then he says there's further details about them in the spin-off material about why they're going away. They just don't want their powers used in a war. And then he says, and then there's another layer, which I guess is, I believe in the Crusaders, the follow-up series, the Crusade, where I think they make another appearance, not the specific actor, but just the technomages in general. So
yes, they do.
And then Starmaster Talon says, my dad always said he wanted to be a technomage when he grows up. He also says he wants to retire on Naboo. So there's an image for you, a retired technomage living on Naboo. That's pretty funny.
That is great.
Let's see here, more technomage stuff. It's and then Miro Petied. I'm sorry, Miro, I don't know how to pronounce that. He says he's a big fan of this episode, especially after the serious clunkiness of the previous one. The long Sheridan exposition scenes with his sister were just awful, but here we get delightful Ivanova diplomacy managing Drazis, so that was pretty good. And then technologies of the technomages, he says it's bigger than we know. It's like, and this is a good comparison, I think. It's like the elves leaving for the West in Lord of the Rings. It's all about Arthur C. Clarkean ideas, not just the notion that technology is magic if you don't understand it. No more than that. They just know more than we do. There's a reason they're departing, and it's mysterious, but the mystery is building the grandiosity of the stakes and the immensity of what's coming. As Jesse said, yes to all the above. It's Foundation like 2. And then finally, Khan says, orange blossoms. You're all fired.
Okay. Can I just say, I said cherry blossoms, and it's because I lived in the DC area so long. They have a big cherry blossom festival there. So that's why it's in my head, and I couldn't pull it out. But thanks for firing me, Khan.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Good deal. All right. If someone wants to give us feedback, we are always love for you to go post on the channel. You want to tell them where they can find us on YouTube, Lou?
Sure. Yes, you can find us at Lou's Reviews, and you'll find the B5 podcasts there, as well as Stephen King's The Writers and our JKL Media, where we do one-offs. We're currently working through Station 11, and those episodes will come up as a bunch down the road.
All right. And Karen, you could be found?
Yeah, at Eliveria on Twitter for now. Wherever I go, if it does collapse like a dying star, I will be at Eliveria there as well, most likely. And there's a link in my bio to my blog at which you can find a bunch of other stuff. Also, our email address is jklb5podcast@gmail.com.
And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter for now. You can hear me talk Bruce Springsteen on Set Lusting Bruce, and John Hyatt on Perfectly Good Podcast. And Karen, Lou, this was a blast. Thank you so much for hanging with me again. I will say, may God stand between you and harm in all the empty places where you may walk.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And scene.